Welcome to another episode of Season 2 of the Panjwai Podcast. As always, you can find our episodes on all podcast platforms, as well as YouTube and Facebook for the video episodes. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button on your platform of choice, and if you enjoy what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a nice 5-star review.
If you want to support the podcast financially, we've set up a few ways for you to do so this season. You can become a patron by hopping over to patreon.com/thepanjwai podcast and sign up for a small monthly donation. If you want to make a one-time donation, you can find us on Venmo at the Panjwai Podcast. And last but not least, we've got a small selection of merchandise in our store. So if you head over to thepanjwaipodcast.com and click on the store tab, you'll see stickers and other merchandise, and who knows what might come down the pipeline. So remember, on all three platforms, that's the Panjwai Podcast, PANJWAI Podcast. Thank you.
What have you spent any time in Georgia, Tom?
Just passing through. I drove
good.
down there once, a couple times.
That's good.
You're not
Don't stop
much.
Don't stay. Savannah's cool.
That's nice. Coastline.
Coastline's pretty cool. Dahlonega area is really cool. That's it.
That's it. Rest of Georgia sucks.
Rest of it sucks.
Yeah.
Just basically Alabama. Anyway, so we're sitting here with Thomas Underhill. Thomas is a combat medic who served in 125 out at Fort Wainwright, and he was in 15 Cav?
Oh, it's 15 Infantry.
15 Infantry. I'm sorry. I know how deeply offensive that must have been. 15 Infantry at COP Sperwan Ghar. Actually, COP Sperwan Ghar was the second half of his deployment in 2011 into 2012. We'll cover that here in a little bit. The point is, he's a fellow Sperwan Ghar veteran, and we ripped out with him. So we didn't know it at the time, but we probably passed each other in the hallway and called each other assholes, because that's what you do to the other units.
If I would have noticed your name tag, I would have definitely made a Hobbit comment, for sure.
I get them all the time.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, that's a classic.
It is a classic Tolkien name.
Yeah.
I guess we do have to ask. You don't live under a hill, do you?
No, I do not.
But you do have a hobbity accent, which is nice, pleasing to the ear.
Yes, it is. And with that, let's go ahead and give Thomas a chance to give us the standard breakdown of a Panjwai Podcast episode. How you came to join the Army. Why the fuck do you have a British accent? How you came to join the Army, why you chose become a medic, and kind of the chain of events that led to your first and only deployment to Afghanistan.
Well, it's nice to see you guys again.
Cheers.
So I moved to the US when I was a kid, about 6 years old. And as far back as I could remember, I wanted to be in the military, one branch or the other. And it started out with the Air Force, wanted to be a fighter pilot, I think like most kids do.
As we all do.
And then I learned that I needed some sort of education to kind of do that stuff. So I ended up lowering my expectations to helicopter pilot, which you still need education for.
Lowering your expectations? It's way harder to fly a helicopter than fly a jet. Just saying.
Well, I wouldn't know. And then I tried out going to the Marine recruiter and found them too intense. And then landed the Army. Army recruiter, wanted to go into counterintelligence. And at the time, I wasn't a citizen, or at least I didn't think I was. So the requirement for that MOS was U.S. citizenship. So the recruiter came back to me and said, you need to pick something else. And I landed on medic somehow.
Luck of the draw.
Yeah, luck of the draw. There was some sort of education bonus that I not ended up using at all. So
right. That's not an uncommon path to the to whatever role in the Army. It's like, I want to be a fighter pilot. No, I'll go be in the Marine Corps. I'll do the Army.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason I didn't go with the Marines, because they wouldn't let you pick a job.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time. So
they're just way too intense.
Yeah.
Right. So once you started your medic training and started getting into that, was it something that you kind of enjoyed, or was it something you just kind of did as part of your job?
No, I really enjoyed it. It was intellectually stimulating as much as it can be. They dumb it down quite a lot for us Army guys. It's not...
well, we are retarded.
The infantrymen, maybe.
Bam, first shot.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Hey!
There we go. Yeah, so I did my basic training at Fort Sill with, I think my entire basic training company was full of medics, and we all shipped down to Fort Sam Houston to do our AIT at the same time. And
How long was the AIT?
I can't remember.
It's surprisingly short, if I remember correctly.
I think I went on Christmas leave just before, and then came back and graduated AIT about May time. So
that's kind of short.
Kind of short.
I don't know. I guess it just depends on what your definition of a short AIT would be. For me, something medical, I feel like should be more than 4.5 months, but that's just me.
You learn a whole lot more once you get to your unit. And I think that's the same with every MLS.
job in the Army.
Every job. You go
even
through...
pilots, believe it or not.
Really?
Nah, don't worry, you learn this at your unit. It's like, but I'm at flight school. I feel like I should learn it here. Nah, ain't got time. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So it was a lot of that. You'll learn what you need to know when you get there. So
this should really be the motto of the Army. Like, forget Army of One or whatever. It's just like, join the Army. You'll learn what you need to at your unit.
Yeah. You learn what you need. You learn what you need to on the ground in Afghanistan.
OJT, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of that.
So when did you graduate AIT? What year?
That would have been early 2010. After that, shipped off to do... Actually, I came back home for a week or two to do the hometown recruiting, which was just a free week of leave, essentially.
Yeah. Right.
Call the recruiter every day. Hey, are we going into a school? No. All right. I'm going to hide away. It's essentially hometown recruiting. I don't know if they do it anymore or not.
I think so. That's a pretty popular program.
Yeah. And then after that, went out to Alaska. Actually met my barracks roommate in the airport, and we traveled together.
Nice.
And we stuck together all the way up until we deployed. Then we ended up getting put into separate companies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know about your unit, but our unit kept the medics as part of the HHC company until we deployed. Then we got kind of farmed out to the line companies.
Right. Same thing. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Although we always had medics attached to our companies. Like, even when we weren't deployed, we always had like a company medic. They just didn't live with us. They weren't
hang out there.
Yeah.
Like they were the de facto medic for the company, but they lived in HHC and they did everything HHC. It's just like when we would train or whatever, we'd have our medic with us.
Right.
Yeah. So I did about half a year up in Alaska before we started getting ready for deployment. The rumors started flying pretty much as soon as I got there. Well, hey, we're going somewhere. They'd just come back from Iraq the year before, I think. And so we moved along, went to NTC, did some not so useful training, driving around in the desert. Did do some useful live tissue trainings, though, on some secret squirrel location. We did goat training in Texas at Fort Sam, and then
That's awesome.
we did some training with pigs in California somewhere.
Really?
Undisclosed location. I have no idea where we were.
PETA would fucking flip.
Exactly.
Yeah. Actually, give us a little rundown on the live tissue training, because I feel like it was something we've talked about in the podcast yet.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, actually.
Oh, really?
Well, then we won't.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can talk about it.
There you go.
Because I don't,
I'm not under it.
I haven't actually seen it, so I can speculate. I suspect what happens is that there's farms full of pigs and goats that get shot, stabbed, blown up, etc. And then people get to work on them because it's valuable training.
Yeah. It's pretty much what you say.
Well, I know in the 18 Delta course, their goats have a very, very, very rough time.
They do.
Very, very rough time. Like, PETA would be very disappointed. So I suspect, again, that it's very similar. But we'll move on so we don't get Tom in trouble.
Right. I don't think anyone's going to come after me about a goat, but who knows?
Dude, have you seen PETA? Whoo!
This is true.
All right, so you do your all your medic training. You kind of wrap all that up. A little bit of time in Alaska. You're up in Wainwright, which for our geographically challenged listeners and most that really don't give a shit, because why would you? Wainwright is outside of Fairbanks, which is kind of central, kind of the north central part of Alaska. Not even quite the northern part of Alaska.
No.
But north of the mountain ranges, so more north of Denali and some of the more prominent peaks, as opposed to the Stryker unit, which is in J-Bear, which is Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson.
I think you got that backward.
Did I? Is it Strikers in Wainwright and
Strikers
Airborne
in
J-Bear?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I see. That's what we're here. That's what you're here for the geography challenged people like myself that live in the state. So you did that, and then rumors are flying. And when do you guys step off for your deployment?
April of 2011.
Did you have any idea where you're going? Or was it just Afghanistan?
We were told we were going to Uruzgan province. We trained as we were going there. We were told it was mountainous, so we trained like we were going to the mountains, hiking up hills, and preparing for the cold, which for us was no big deal, being in Alaska. And then I thought we were still going to Uruzgan province when I got off the plane at CAF, and then I was told that we were going to stay in Kandahar province. And we did the obligatory IED lanes as part of that.
Oh yes.
And then
did you learn anything in your IED lane? Did you feel like it really prepared you for the experiences that you're going to have?
No, not really. I feel like they took the knowledge of what they learned in Iraq and then said, this is what we know. This is maybe what you'll see. Have fun.
The one thing that always tripped me out, word choice, was they had tripwires.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not so sure we ran into tripwires very much in Afghanistan. Maybe we did. Please feel free to correct us in the comments.
Yeah, they were definitely not unheard of. There were rumors.
Right.
Or at least unconfirmed to our unit. But one of our sister battalions in the brigade, they did see some tripwires.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. With the directed fragmentation charges and all that stuff going on.
They weren't very good at those. Thankfully.
They weren't.
Yeah. Like, if it was anything more complicated than like a pressure plate or command wire, they struggled.
I don't even think they did too many command wires, at least
very,
not
very
for
few.
us.
Yeah, very, very few.
Hardly any.
Like
not
maybe
even
two.
One.
I think Anderson's was command wire.
Yeah.
But that's the only one I know for sure. So, but yeah, so I didn't really feel like that prepared us much at all. And so your first stop outside of CAF, it was mostly in Dand District, right?
Correct. Dand District, COP Ainsworth, which was set up by the Canadians before us. There was actually a Canadian omelet still there, when we showed up. They had their little aid station and their couple of tents. I think it was only 6 guys and 2 MRAPs maybe. And the rest of the Canadians had already left from that base at least.
And for our listeners, an omelet is not broken eggs. It is actually, it's like their train and assist team. And I don't remember what the acronym is. It's been explained before, but yeah, it's like their train and assist team.
Yeah, they would go out and assist Afghan army or local police and train them up and go on patrols with them. They would usually get up before I did and come back after I went to bed. So they were always out and hardly ever saw them.
And they probably weren't, I mean, were they there until you left Ainsworth?
No, they left sort of halfway through my stay at Ainsworth. Mostly when I think all the Canadians pulled out at that point, and it was left to us.
Around that time.
Yeah.
And what was your patrolling like around Ainsworth? I mean, was it mostly mounted, mostly dismounted, kind of a mix of both?
So the topography of Dand District is different to Panjwai District. There's very few grape rows. It's very flat, mostly wheat fields, and most of those are not always tilled, so you can drive a striker around. So we did that a lot. We'd mount up in the morning, drive out to a village, meet with some elders, whoever they may be, and then drive home, maybe go to another place, do that. There wasn't a whole lot of dismounted stuff from Ainsworth. There wasn't a lot around it. It was maybe 1 mile, 2 miles north of the Reg Desert in Dand District.
Wow. So where is Dand in comparison to Panjwai? Is it immediately to the east?
Yes, immediately to the east. They border each other.
Okay, cool.
Kind of in between Kandahar Airfield and Panjwai.
Yes.
So not far.
Right?
No,
not far at all. Hop and a skip. So when you guys were in Dand, like what kind of contact and stuff were you seeing? Was it consistent? Was it sporadic? Was there none at all?
There was none at all. It was completely pacified.
Really? Even with IEDs?
We only encountered 1 IED, or at least my company only encountered 1 IED while we were in Dand District.
Really?
And that was actually right on the border with Panjwai.
Oh, really?
So it was basically in Panjwai.
It was basically Panjwai.
I mean, that's one of the things I've noticed a lot is guys who shifted mid-deployment. If they come from other areas, they may not have had as much, small arms, but it seems like everybody was fighting IEDs all the time. Like our EOD team was like that. Like they came from an area where I don't think they said they hardly had any contact, but they were fighting. They were dealing with IEDs constantly. So that's interesting to see, though. Just a hop and a skip away, completely different world.
And the border was the Tarnak River, right?
I believe so. I crossed it a couple of times to go to some of the villages on the other side. That ended up being the AO of our Charlie company, basically for the whole deployment, I think. There was not a whole lot going on in Dand. It was pretty boring, routine, lots of guard duty for me, up in the towers with the ANA, sign language at each other.
Oh, man. So when you guys got spun up to come to Panjwai, I mean, had you heard what was going on in Panjwai before you guys came? And was it like rumor mills churning, or you guys were hearing reports from your, their units or whatever?
Not really. We didn't really get a whole lot of heads up that we were moving. And right before we moved, I went on my mid-tour leave because we did a 12-month deployment, so they were still doing leaves. And when I came back from my leave, I got dropped off by helicopter at a completely different base. Where is this?
Did you get dropped off on Sperwan Ghar?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. What'd you think when you stepped off the bird? Were you like, oh, this is nice? Or I guess maybe COP's Ainsworth might have been nice, though.
Sperwan Ghar was really nice, even compared to Ainsworth.
Nice.
Club Med.
Nice. Deluxe apartment in the sky.
Yep.
Yeah. It had a proper aid station, which was, for me, was awesome.
Mm-hmm. With a PA and everything.
Yeah, with a PA and everything. So we had our battalion PA there, along with one of the medics from HHC as his assistant, essentially. Nice. So I didn't really have to deal with the aid station at all, other than hanging out in there, doing training, watching TV.
Sure.
That kind of stuff.
Now, your arrival at Sperwan Ghar was not your first time in Panjwai. In fact, your first time in Panjwai was very similar to an operation that we did in that you cleared the Horn about 6 months before we did.
Yep, we sure did. So in September of 2011, actually for the anniversary of September 11th, we did Operation Bobcat Mole, where we air assaulted into the Horn of Panjwai and cleared it from one side right into the very tippy tip at forgetting the name of the village now.
Wushan line.
No, it's right by Cop Line. I know what you're talking about. I cannot remember the name of the village either.
Doab, I think.
There
it was.
you go.
That's it.
So we cleared into Doab, and then at the same time, while my company was taking all the attention, the other companies in our battalion pushed strikers and engineers out, and they built Cop Lion right at the tip.
Really?
Yeah.
So how is it that your company, I guess your battalion, got pinged with this if it was way out of their AO?
I think they just wanted extra manpower, and we were available.
Mm-hmm.
And our district was
quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So they put us on a bird with 2 companies of A&A, and then the 3 companies of our battalion, all doing their jobs.
Where'd they drop you off in comparison to Sperwan Ghar? East, west? West?
I don't remember
west.
ever seeing Sperwan Ghar. I think we were west of there.
Yeah, it had to have been.
Probably started around Zangabad, would be a good guess. That's where we started.
We started even further west than Zangabad. We started at Talakan.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
So this was so you guys did this clearing operation. It was your first legit combat of the tour, then, huh?
It wasn't the first, I guess, IEDs that we'd seen. We'd seen one before in June, or was it July? I can't remember. Where one of our vehicles hit an IED right next to the Tarnak River on the border of Panjwai. But it was my first gunfight, or series of gunfights.
Yeah, right.
So
in the first situation, you would have earned your CMB, and would this be where you earned your cab, or did you get the cab in both situations?
So medics don't get cabs.
At all?
Nope.
I feel like I should have known that.
Maybe they do. I think you can get a cab if you're not attached to an infantry or a combat arms unit. So if you're, I don't know, in a civil affairs unit or something, maybe you'll get a cab. I can't remember the particulars. So
interesting. I guess I always thought that the CMB would be for treating somebody, and that the cab was just for duking it out.
Yeah.
Huh.
The requirements for the CMB are basically the same as the CIB, as far as I remember. You just have to take contact. You don't even have to treat anybody.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I've been living under a lie for the past 9.5 years.
So you really so when you guys got and started clearing up the Horn, what was going on? When did shit really start going down for you guys? Day one?
Day one. We went in right after midnight. It was dark.
Mm-hmm.
We set up a little patrol base to kind of rest for a little while. Force some of the guys to strip off their cold weather gear. Because for some reason they were wearing it and dying of heat by the middle of the morning. And that was actually the first time we got shot at, as far as I can remember. Just a couple pop shots over a mud wall.
Really?
Didn't see them.
At night?
No, it was during the day, in the morning.
So the sun started coming up and you started taking contact, huh?
Yeah. And then we started moving west towards Doab. And we got into our first big firefight. For that, I don't remember a whole lot, other than I moved up to start shooting and something exploded. I don't know if it was an IED in a tree or an RPG that hit the tree, but it sprayed shrapnel and hit quite a few of our guys. Our PL took some. The platoon sergeant took some, RTO, the weapons squad leader, and I think maybe one more guy. So 5 casualties, none of them super seriously hurt, except the platoon sergeant. He ended up getting evacuated from Afghanistan. And luckily, I had another medic with me on that operation, whatever we want to call it. We had a FET with us, and one of the one of the soldiers
female engagement teams.
Yeah, female engagement team. One of the soldiers on the female engagement team was a medic also.
Wow.
Valerie Cronkite is a great medic and an awesome soldier. She saved my life a few times on that operation.
Wow.
Just
nice.
Either making me go to sleep or just keeping my head straight. She was great.
So I guess the female engagement teams, it's usually what it's I think it always is a medic. And obviously there's an interpreter, and usually like only 2 or 3 people, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think we only had 2 because they split the FET between a couple of our platoons.
It's a really interesting mission, and they had a lot of autonomy.
They did.
If you imagine you only have 2 women, in an operation that size, one of them's a medic, the other one's probably an interpreter. It's like,
yeah, I
crazy.
think our battalion's FET was 1 officer, an NCO, an interpreter, and then the medic.
That sounds right.
And maybe 1 more.
It's very similar to how like a civil affairs team is set up.
Yeah.
So you clear the Horn, which obviously is not just a minor thing. It took you 10 days to do it?
Officially, it was 10 days. I think we left after or before that.
Okay.
It was just run into one big giant memory for me.
Sure,
there was very little sleep and a lot of things going on. I don't remember sleeping a whole lot.
Did the fighting worsen throughout the week, or did it kind of subside after those first 3 days?
It subsided. Most of the villages we went into were empty.
Really?
All the IEDs were turned on, batteries plugged in, and everyone had gone, except for the guys who were going to stick around and fight us. We encountered a few families that didn't leave, and we'd talk to them. They'd point us in the wrong direction, and it was what it was.
It is what it is. Yeah. Now, at the end of that operation, you got all the way down to Doab, got to Cop Lion, and then how'd you get out?
We were going to fly out, and then the helicopters didn't show up, so we ended up walking about 6 miles east, and then we got picked up by strikers, driven to a cop. It was either Lion, Zangabad, one of those, and then we flew from there back to Dand District. 10-minute flight.
Really, really glad you guys got that extra walk in. I'm sure your legs were just, you sure the one to stretch your legs.
Excited about that, yeah.
Running around with ripped pant legs. Everybody. It was, I think, 50% of the guys, their pants were ripped right down the leg seam.
Or right in the crotch.
Yeah, some really good photos of just guys with their balls hanging out.
And this is a lesson to the people that make, it's not the people that make the uniforms. It's the people who choose the material with which the uniforms are made.
It's the congressman who's got his money
fucking suck
into uniform manufacturing.
If all you're doing is sitting on the fob, they hold up great. If you're climbing over things and like falling down and like going through water and like kneeling down every 5 seconds or laying, they fucking get destroyed.
I don't know how many pairs of bottoms I went through. Like I got to the point where I was running close to running out. It's like I was
10
going to go on patrol
at least.
Oh, I went through more than that.
Yeah,
by a long
shot. 10 in addition to the 6 that I brought with me, at least.
Oh yeah. I would say that every week and a half, I was probably needing a new pair of pants.
They'd send them to you though. You go on. I can't remember the website or whatever it was or what it was called.
Really?
You go on and order pants and
I forgot
glasses and whatever you wanted.
So we did that, but they did something dirty, and like they picked for us what we got. So everyone got fucking PTs. Like nobody got pants. Nobody got
stinks of.
And we all got boots because no one needed boots because we all bought civilian boots.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all these brand new pairs of boots arrived for us, and we just gave them to the Afghans.
That stinks of our battalion leadership, not the battalion we were attached to, but our sister home battalion leadership.
Oh yeah, they were fucked up.
Yeah.
The only time we actually got pants is when we sent people back to CAF when they went on like their little supply runs, and we like sent them to like the warehouse where you could just straight up trade stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how we got pants.
Mm-hmm.
No, we were given access, so lots of pants. That's what
it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Lots of iPro. Mm-hmm. Gloves. I went through gloves like no other.
Mm-hmm.
Usually because I would take them off to treat somebody and then they'd get lost. So I'd need a new pair of gloves. The 2 or 3 times I'd have a brand new pair of gloves on that day. We'd have someone that I needed to treat, take them off, and they disappear.
Yeah.
Or worse, they're covered in blood. It's not a pair of gloves you want to put back on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was your intro to Panjwai. That was
my intro.
This is this Panjwai place. Good thing I don't live there. And then you come back from leave and you arrive at Sperwan Ghar.
Exactly.
And this was late October, early November?
Roundabouts, yeah.
So what were the first couple months like around Sperwan Ghar, kind of in your new digs and your new AO?
It was pretty quiet for gunfights, but IEDs we'd find, call out EOD, the usual stuff. We would almost never took EOD with us on patrol. So we'd have to call them and someone would have to bring them to us, which was, in hindsight, probably not good. When we did have them, they were very useful.
That was a lesson that it took us a while to learn too. I think probably our first 2 months or so, we did the same thing. We'd go out without them. And then we foolishly thought we just needed to call them for every single pressure plate. So we'd find a pressure plate. We'd wait 4 hours for them because it took us 4 hours to walk there. And they come out and they blow it up and they walk back with us. But eventually we were like, either you're coming with us or we're going to blow it ourselves. And that's what we ended up doing, much to their disappointment. They did not like that we had the ability to blow our own IEDs. It was, and when Russ explained why, he had a very good reason why. But at the time, we really just enjoyed the autonomy of being able to be like, nah, fuck it.
Yeah.
Blow it.
Kaboom.
Kaboom. So lots of IEDs and lots of time wasted on EOD. Did you guys kind of adapt a little bit more as you pushed on to bring them with you more, or?
So my patrolling time in Panjwai was actually kind of short. I spent from late October, early November until about January time on the line, going on patrols. And then I was actually promoted to company senior medic. So I was taking care of everybody on the base. Well, including our PA, who was fantastic. Gained a lot of good training from him.
Nice. So when you go over the company medic role, were you having to deal with a lot of like Afghan casualties and stuff like that? Because our company medic was always fingers deep in random Afghan soldiers that would get brought into the COP and medevaced.
I saw a couple of Afghan soldiers. We actually had a lot of people just show up at the gate with like no legs, and they'd bring them on, and then we'd end up flying them out. They kind of nixed that at the end because the rules changed, and the Afghans were supposed to evacuate their own instead of relying on us to do it. So I don't know if we ever turned anybody away.
Sure, but I can imagine that we would.
We did end up training the private security guards on first aid. So
really?
When we did have people show up at the gate hurt, it wouldn't be on me to run down to the gate after getting the radio call and then getting someone to drive a gator down with a litter and then taking them all the way back up to the aid station.
Nice. So after you've been there for a little bit, you guys kind of got geared up for a multi-day company operation.
Yeah.
And this ended up being kind of a big day for you guys. Can kind of talk us through the lead up to that, the kind of the reason for the mission, and then day one was a shit show, so we can jump straight into it.
Yeah. So it was another clearing operation, moving out west from Sperwan Ghar towards the 2-8 grid line, the 2-8 grid line that we always hear about.
2-8 grid line.
Yep. Infamous.
So the first day we walked a lot. We left early. I can't remember the time, and we were going to walk out as far as we could go and then make our way back clearing. And then we actually ended up taking contact sort of in the middle of the day. A guy stuck an AK through a door, popped off a few rounds as I was going over the wall, heard the bullets whiz by, and then that was it. He booked it. Luckily, we had a Predator on station. So our Fister was on the radio with them. And we ended up having them shoot a Hellfire at those guys.
Nice.
At least one of them was killed. I don't know what happened to the other guy. And so we went to search the body, do our bat and hide on him, see if he was a known Talib or not. And where we found his body, about 200, 300 meters down the pathway, was a compound that we ended up going into that was a weapons cache. So Lieutenant Vogt was down there with a squad, and they were going through. They found some RPGs, a couple of AKs, bits and bobs, maybe some IED materials. Can't exactly remember. And outside that compound, there were 2 IEDs. And I specifically remember Specialist Preda. He'd actually been just promoted to be a team leader. I remember him coming out of the door of the compound and just a big explosion where he was. And I heard somebody calling for me, yelling for a medic. I think they called Beam by name, actually. So they're yelling Underhill. And I went running. I knew what I needed to do as soon as I saw the explosion. And one of our squad leaders, Sergeant Lassick, actually grabbed me by the back of the plate carrier and stopped me just before the second IED went off. And that one hurt our platoon leader, Lieutenant Vogt. So I went from 1 severe casualty to 2. And which for a platoon medic, that's a mass cal, especially as severely wounded as they were. Right. Both bilateral leg amputations. And so I was bouncing back and forth between the two, telling whoever was there to do whatever I needed. I had guys hooking up IV lines for me, making sure tourniquets were tight, wrapping everything with Israeli dressings as much as I could do. Lieutenant Vogt his amputation was so high that we couldn't put a tourniquet on it. And I ended up using a large Israeli dressing, or an abdominal dressing in this case, to kind of cover the wound. That was a rough day. Yeah. And I wasted. I used all my medical supplies. I was black, completely out. Used everything I had, all my fluids, all my gauze, tourniquets. It was all gone.
And they were both picked up in a pretty reasonable time by the medevac?
It could have been faster, actually.
Sure.
So we got them both on Skedcos, and I ended up dragging Lieutenant Vogt myself because there was a bridge over a little ditch, and solo, just me dragging him. I dragged him into the LZ, and we threw smoke grenade, but it was red. So the helicopter pilot took it as "don't land here," not "this is where we want you to land," even though in the 9 line we said red smoke.
Right.
So he came in, said, "Oh shoot, don't land here," and took off again, and circled around, landed in a different spot. So we lost maybe 5-10 minutes to that. And that was crucial time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your what were you thinking about your two patients when you loaded them up, about in terms of their condition?
So I honestly thought that Lieutenant Vogt was the worse off. Peretta, he was actually still pretty conscious at the time. And, I put him on the bird, kissed him on the forehead, said, "See you later, best of luck," kind of thing. And I didn't find out until a couple of days later that Peretta had passed away on the way to CAF in the helicopter. And then we started receiving reports of everything that went on at CAF to save Lieutenant Vogt.
No, we definitely are going to talk about that here in a second. So when you dropped him off, I mean, it was back to mission, right? Like, you guys were day one of a 2-day planned operation?
2 or 3 days, yeah. I think they ended up cutting it short to 2.
So they cut it short. Well, how generous.
Yeah.
What happened next? So you're out, you're on patrol, you're black on, all your medical supplies, you just had a MASCAL, your PL's gone. What was the next move?
So we had our company commander with us, Captain Bulls, and he called me over and asked me, if we take another casualty, can you deal with it? And I said, no, I'm black on medical supplies. All we have is what we have in our first aid kits on us. So we made a movement back towards Sperwan Ghar, where we met. They put together a quick patrol and sent some strikers out to pick us up on the road somewhere. I can't remember where. And then drove us the last mile or so to the base. And they dropped us off on the firing range down at the bottom of the hill. And we, put ourselves together down there. And they actually had us sleep on the firing range before we went back out the next day.
So you went all the way back to your base.
Yeah.
And they put you on the range instead of putting you back up into your bunks.
Yeah.
And you went back out the next day.
Correct.
And were you driven back out to the point where you'd been left off, or was it basically just like you restarted the whole mission from square one?
So we ended up doing the villages just west of Route Brown.
So they changed the objective too.
They juggled the objectives and whatnot. That was not anything I was concerned about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As the medic, you're kind of, or at least in the platoon, you're kind of the platoon sergeant's puppy. Yes. Just follow him around.
Yep.
And I just follow him wherever he goes. I go, and I knew the overall outline of the mission, but the specifics I didn't need to know. I was more concerned about keeping my guys alive, making sure that they had all their medical supplies, that their medical supplies were still in date and not damaged, because I did find that a lot, that sitting in the IFAC and climbing over things and bumping into stuff, your needles would bend or your packets would wear open. So we'd go through and replace all that stuff before missions. So that's the stuff I was concerned about. Not so much, where we were going and who we were seeing.
So day one, you go out, MASCAL, retrograde back to Sperwan, sleep on the firing range, rearm, refit, get ready, go back out, change a mission, and you do a patrol just outside the gate on day 2, and then that's it.
Yeah. That day, we actually sat in the village just right outside and watched A-10s assist our 3rd platoon, who were also out doing the same sort of mission, but they were east of Route Brown.
Okay.
And they got into some contact. And
that's right, because you were saying you guys split the AO by Route Brown, so you guys only mostly patrolled to the west, and your 3rd platoon mostly patrolled to the east.
Yes, exactly. And then our MGS platoon, I think, had Little Reggae down to the south, and some other small AOs, but I could be wrong on that.
Sure. I mean, you guys stick to that pretty religiously. Was there ever any crossover, or was it pretty rigid?
It was pretty rigid. I don't ever remember going east, or at least into the villages east of Route Brown. For some reason, we would go up to the mosque up near Masamgar for some reason.
OP Mosque, yeah.
OP Mosque, and then there were some villages actually on the north side of Route Hyena that we'd go visit every once in a while, but not too often. There wasn't a lot there, just a couple villages, and then it was riverbed out until
up to the Arghandab.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're always off to the east, and I actually kind of like that idea. I feel like it gives you a little bit better knowledge of your AO, and like you get to actually know the people in the villages, and maybe you don't like become BFFs or anything, but you recognize them, and you might notice somebody that isn't usually there. So I think I actually kind of like that decision. Kind of wish we had done that. We just got to experience it all. Got the full smorgasbord. But so you wrap up that operation. At this point, you have no idea the condition of your patients. 48 hours out now.
Yeah.
When do you find out their status?
We get back in the evening, and company commander calls a powwow in the talk, and he told us, that Lieutenant Vogt was alive. He wasn't really very stable at that point, and then he also told us that Peretta had passed, and that is the worst feeling. Yeah, especially in my mind when I thought it would have been the opposite.
Sure, and
that Peretta was doing better, and then I never ever want to go through that feeling again.
Sure.
Luckily, I haven't had to.
I hope you don't. Really. The company commander, he was out with you on day 1 when everything happened. Was he out on day 2 as well?
I can't remember, honestly. I think so.
Gotcha. So he knew, and he was just kind of making sure you guys stayed mission focused.
Mission focused, kind of trying to keep morale up as much as he could. At least that's what it was told to me, that was their reasoning. Don't tell us, keep the mission going, and then when we're done, we can find out.
Now, when did you find out about what was going on at CAF to save Lieutenant Vogt?
I don't remember, honestly. I just remember soon after we had a general from, I think it was the 82nd or maybe the 101st, someone who was at, I don't know, way up there. He came and visited us with a camera crew and everything. And they did a short interview. And that's kind of when I figured out that something wasn't quite normal with what was going on. And then, the details came in afterwards.
Can you, if you, from what you know, you kind of tell us what happened at CAF once Lieutenant Vogt got there?
Yeah. So I neglected to say that one of our NCOs was also hurt, just some minor shrapnel to the face, Sergeant Lundy. And he flew on the same helicopter with Lieutenant Vogt and Specialist Peretta. And once they kind of picked his face clean, gave him a clean bill of health, he started going around because they'd actually run out of blood on CAF to give to Lieutenant Vogt. So they went over on the big voice and called for people to come to the hospital to give blood. And from what I heard, it was an international effort, Brits, Romanians, civilians from wherever they come from, all lining up to give blood to help save Lieutenant Vogt's life. It was, I think it was a really big day for Army medicine. They kind of pushed the envelope of what could be done.
Sure. Because they had to stabilize him before they could fly him out of the country. So this was their effort to kind of get him stable.
Yeah. So they used all the blood that they had, and they needed more.
And you were saying that when you're doing procedure like this, when you know they're going to lose the blood anyway, the blood type isn't quite as important?
As far as I know, I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I never profess to be, even though the infantrymen like to call me doc. You know, I was really just a glorified EMT.
Right.
So
I mean, they were definitely giving him blood that wasn't his blood type, for sure. I mean, if they ran out of all the blood in calf.
My speculation is that all the blood that they have available is universal donor.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. That just logistically, that would seem easier.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But that's
then you
just,
don't have to worry about it.
That's just speculation on my point. I don't know, but that would make sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of a, I mean, it's despite the terrible nature of that situation and everything, there's a miraculous silver lining to it. You know, the fact that you were able to treat him on the ground, someone whose wounds were devastating. I mean, the chances of coming back from those wounds are basically zilch, all the way through to him having a very successful recovery. So, you know, that's for you, that's got to be something that you just carry forward with you in life, man. Something that you can, you know,
it's
hold on to.
Something I'm proud of. I actually went to his wedding.
Yeah.
Which was really awesome to see.
Nice.
I never thought it would happen, just from what I saw, and then a few years later, I'm at his wedding, partying it up, and it was great. It was really great.
Nice.
And for our viewers, it is worth noting that Tom is here because Lieutenant Vogt contacted us and said, "You need to talk to this guy." Mm. So this is somebody that is living his life. Like you said, he's married now. Assume he's still double amputee.
Yeah.
Is it above the knee?
It's actually, it's basically at the hip. It's quite high.
Man. So I mean that to me that's pretty inspiring, because I'm not so sure if I could be such a positive person with a high AK amputation. That's just, man. I always said 5 pounds or less below the knee, and I'm okay. Like I can. That's not a huge intrusion on my life. I mean, let's say it's not the biggest intrusion. It could be a lot worse. I can live with that. But damn, man. And so after this operation, we're time traveling, doing Tarantino back and forth here. You know, what's the rest of your deployment look after that operation?
It was a lot of running around the COP, just looking after guys, making sure that my guys, meaning the medics in the platoons, were well supplied. You know, making sure that everyone's feet were good. That was an obsession of mine.
Somebody watched We Were Soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, so 2 months in, when we were still at Ainsworth, I had a guy come to me. He's like, "My feet really itch, Doc. Can you have a look?" And he had trench foot.
Oh, man.
So he hadn't been changing his socks, not taking off his boots, like basic infantry stuff, right?
No.
So from that moment on, it was, take your socks off, let me look at your feet. Like every day. I'd go in and check on a squad or two just to make sure that they were, you know,
not being dirty ass grunts.
Yeah. Not having their feet rot off.
Yeah. I know a couple guys that were like that. It's like, dude,
there's always a few.
Yeah.
I never understood that, man. Like the first thing that happened, I got back to my room. Was boots were off.
Yeah.
Before anything else came off, boots were off, socks were off. I was in sandals.
Oh,
like
you could.
Puppy's got to breathe, man.
Yeah, peel your socks off like it's a second layer of skin.
Yeah,
and go up to the roof and throw them
disgusting.
out on the roof to dry.
Yeah.
I'd come back and I'd pick up my pants and I could just stand them in the corner. They so rigid with sweat.
I'm just gonna go vomit now. Thank you.
I think that's true. Everyone's experience is just being gross all the time.
All the time.
Disgusting.
Just disgusting.
Just gritty and sandy and just
dusty.
And the only thing you got to look forward to was a cold outdoor shower.
I loved the outdoor shower.
The outdoor shower was legit because a cold outdoor shower is
fantastic.
120 degrees outside is quite pleasant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like the outdoor shower, especially at night. Look up and see the stars. It's actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
It was actually really nice.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, showering at night.
Yeah. Yeah, I did too. Mostly so I wouldn't have to see what was swimming around my feet.
We won't spoil that one for our listeners.
No.
So, what do you do now, Thomas?
I'm they call me an engineer, but I'm not really. I'm a field service technician. I work on machinery. I got out of the medical field completely. I tried a little bit of medicine when I got back, came out of the army, and actually have a little bit of PTSD. It's not super severe, but going into a hospital and seeing people on a gurney, it just instant trigger.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that anymore, so kind of
done your time, man. Ain't no reason to continue down that road. I mean, for some people it's a calling. For some people, like for me, it's like just like the infantry. Like I did my infantry time. I got no reason to do that again.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that for sure. How is that whole experience? Just the deployment, the individual events themselves. Just like how do you kind of carry those with you, today?
It's something I'm proud of. I feel like I did something good. Maybe it hurts inside sometimes, and I worry about all the people that I was ever near. Maybe they weren't in my platoon, maybe they weren't in my company, but if I knew you, I worry about you because being a medic, taking care of people was the thing to do. And it wasn't always physical either.
Right.
It was sometimes just being someone to talk to. Hey doc, I'm having a hard time. And being that ear and being the morale guy, that was super important.
We had similar experiences with ours, and it's I feel like it's an underappreciated aspect of what a combat medic does in combat. So everyone's like, yeah, Doc puts you together. He keeps you together too.
T-shirt, son.
Right?
Yeah.
Hashtag copyright.
There, at points, medics can be kind of removed from the chain of command. You can walk into the first sergeant's AO and just be like, hey, first sergeant, how's things going? You feeling all right? Or, even the battalion commander. Doesn't matter. And when shit hits the fan, you're in charge. It doesn't matter who's around, what rank they are. It could be, a 4-star general if we had one. I'm in charge.
Right.
I need you to put pressure on that wound, and anyone will do it. And I have memories of telling officers, senior NCOs, do this for me. Not, can you do this for me? It was, do this for me.
Right.
And they did it. Anything for Doc. And it astounds me what an infantryman will do for a medic.
Well, we love
you
it.
Damn sure don't call him a pogue.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. You'll get you'll get punched.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not a pogue, definitely.
Not a pogue.
And there's always two people you don't fuck with: medics and cooks.
Oh, we would fuck with the cooks.
I don't know. I feel like the supply guy is a really important one that you got to have on your good side.
Be buddy with the supply guy a little bit.
That's true. You don't have to be nice to him. Like It's not like if you're mean to him, it's probably not going to hurt you. But there's a lot of benefits to being nice to him.
But if Doc walks in and he's like, "Hey, bro, go get me a muffin from the deep pack." I got you, buddy. I got you. Anything else? Can I get you?
Because you don't want to be the one that didn't. When he's treating me as like, this motherfucker didn't give me a muffin. No. Hey, don't run, walk.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
To go back in time again, the day that Peretta and Lieutenant Vogt were were hurt. We'd actually kind of split into two sections, and I needed to go from one section to the other. I was just going to walk between the two. They were only a couple 100 meters apart. Maybe I was being stupid. I was going to go alone.
It's really far.
Yeah. So, Richardson, dude, I love you. He's Doc. I'm going to walk in front of you. If I step on something, fix me. And I remember every day that he did that for me. And, you know, he was lucky because he could have been the one that hit that IED because we were heading right towards it.
Yeah. And I feel like there are so many examples of individual moments of courage like that just, they don't ever get called out. Like, if he's the kind of guy to do that, he's also not the kind of guy to brag about it.
No, I don't think he ever asked for recognition. So I'm going to give you your recognition now. You saved my life, or maybe saved my life, and I really appreciate it.
It takes a lot of courage, man.
Yeah,
like in an AO like that, you have two guys down, and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to pick up my feet and I'm going to walk. If it hits me, it hits me." You know, I have a lot of respect for that. Like I said, those small individual moments of courage often don't get recognized. So thank you for mentioning that, because that's the kind of stuff we want to talk about on here. These are the memories of the war in Afghanistan that we want to be on people's minds. Stuff like that. Yeah. Individual courage.
And you can be having the worst day, like I was, and then you have that courage, and it's that light at the end of the tunnel. That, you know, even though I'm in a terrible situation, I've got guys around me that I can depend on.
Yeah.
You know, thick and thin, life and limb, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know what else to say.
I mean, I mean, Tom, we usually end these things with kind of a chance for you to say what you want and get on the platform, but this has been kind of an unusual episode in that you've been doing it all along, and it's been really, really excellent points. But I'm still going to give you the chance to hop on your soapbox at the end.
Okay.
But just wanted to say we really appreciated your insight, because it's
for sure.
Well, all these episodes are always different, and we appreciate the approach that you've kind of taken in. But the floor is yours.
So I've been racking my brain for days about what to say, and you know, being that we're pulling out of Afghanistan, do I want to talk about that, or do I want to talk about something else? And what I keep coming to is, you know, fellow soldiers being nasty to each other. Yeah, especially when it comes to the pogue, in quotation marks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy he stayed on the fob, but you know what? He made sure you eat. He made sure you ate. He made sure you had ammo, or, you know, he manned the artillery piece that was sitting on the base the whole time. Didn't do anything, but he was there if you needed him. And, you know, stop ragging on these guys. It's a team effort. And
agreed.
You know, that's my piece, I think. Just, we're a team. We're all in it together, and, you know, hold each other up. We're all still here for each other. That's another thing I want to say. It's just, if you need to talk to somebody, you know, reach out. I'm tired of losing buddies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I lost more people from my company to suicide and stupid stuff after we got back from Afghanistan than we actually lost from our company while we were there.
Yeah, reach out and talk to people and talk to everybody, because sometimes you need a larger framework. Sometimes somebody doesn't have cell phone service. Call the next guy, you know. Yeah, reach out to everybody, because that structure is there for you. And yes, be a better veteran. It's been a central ethos to the podcast, is to be a better veteran. Don't be out on Facebook making stupid comments on somebody's post because, you know, they didn't see the shit. Neither did you, bro. You know, it's be a better veteran and do right by the veteran community. And if there's one thing that's been positive to see out of the shit show in Afghanistan, is the solidification of the veteran community around this like one joint effort to try and get as many people out as possible as quick as we can. So
exactly.
Yeah,
that's been really encouraging to see. So
it
Tom,
has restored my faith.
Yes,
in the veteran community, which had been faltering for quite a while.
Yes,
so
for the reasons that you were exactly just talking about.
The exact reasons you were talking about. So I'm
Tom,
happy
man,
to see
we really appreciate you coming on, and glad you got to step in here and give us a little lowdown on what was going on before we got there. It sounds like Sperwan Ghar was always a shitty place.
Always.
Yeah, it definitely was.
No, we appreciate your insight, man.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
It's our privilege.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Panjwai Podcast. If you liked what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. New episodes every Monday on all major podcast platforms, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit www.thepanjwaipodcast.com for more information.